Discovery, go and throttle up.
Discovery rocket, go for deploy. It's here to everybody in the shuttle program. The crew is go for launch. Roger, thanks for being in orbit. We have followed in their footsteps to get us where we are today.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us for our live coverage of the hatch opening of Starliner spacecraft. You're getting a live look inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room. The teams here are getting ready to open the hatches to the brand new spacecraft that attached itself to the International Space Station last night at 7:28 p.m. Thank you for joining us. We are right now following along as the crew are working through their procedures to open up the hatch at the International Space Station side and the Starliner side. I'm NASA's Gary Jordan, joined by Rebecca Regan of Boeing. Thank you for being here, Rebecca.
It's really great to be here. You know, it has been quite the journey for Starliner to get to the International Space Station, and last night Steve Stitch described the spacecraft as patient, and I think we're seeing that come into play today too, because it's been at the International Space Station for a couple hours now, and really ready to welcome the astronauts aboard for the very first time. I think what's really exciting today is that we're going to see live views of the International Space Station crew members getting ready to open the hatch, and then we'll also be able to bring some live views from inside the Starliner for the first time.
Which we are seeing now. What you're seeing is a live view from inside the Starliner spacecraft. No one is inside, but that is the anthropometric test device called Rosie. Rosie is seated inside the Starliner right now. You can see the hatch is closed. We're going to be covering the operations to get that hatch open and the astronauts of the International Space Station inside to formally welcome Starliner to the International Space Station. Now getting live views from inside the station, you can see NASA astronauts Kjell Lindgren on the far end of the camera. Sort of closer to frame is NASA astronaut Bob Hines. The two of them are working through the procedures at the very forward end of the International Space Station. At the back end of that hatch is the Starliner spacecraft. They're working through the procedures to get what's called the A-Pass hatch, or the hatch that's on the station side open. There's a vestibule in between the station side hatch and the Starliner hatch. So they're going to be working to get those two hatches open here momentarily.
Use station from node 2. We are in step 5.4. 5-minute clock started.
Copy. 5-minute clock started.
So you just hear, that was NASA astronaut Kjell Lindgren, who's on the forward end of the frame right now, reading the procedures out loud to Bob Hines, NASA astronaut in the back, working on the A-Pass hatch. What has happened up to this point is there is a space in between the two hatches called the vestibule. The vestibule itself has been at vacuum for quite some time. To get ready to open up the hatch, they need to bring that vestibule up to the same pressure that they're experiencing right now, the same pressure that you would experience on sea level on Earth, so about 14.7 pounds per square inch. That has been brought up to pressure, so right now the vestibule is pressurized. They're just performing a leak check and to check the stabilization of that pressure. Once they get word that the pressure is stable on the inside, they'll get the go from the teams here in Mission Control Houston to open up that hatch. Now you see a lot of storage bags surrounding the inside of the area that leads down to that what's called A-pass hatch. That's the hatch on the station side. Those bags are filled, you can see, with some padding. As part of the hatch opening procedures, the hatches themselves are made out of metallic alloy, so they need to be covered with some special padding, just really as a safety measure, just in case anyone bumps up against it. That extra padding provides easy navigation between the hatches once they're open.
Houston on 2 for Chell. Chell, wanted to let you know the whine or the noise, the background noise you hear on Space to Ground 2 is hardline CST coming into Space to Ground 2. We are going to deconfigure that until you guys are ready to go in, and then we'll re-enable it, and then you're going to do some reconfigurations on the CST comm panel. Copy, thumbs up.
That was International Space Station Capcom, Rob Hayhurst, relaying up to the crew. There is a hum on the Space to Ground. We're pushing it down for our viewers that are watching our coverage today, as they work to make sure the hum on Space to Ground 2 it's being caused right now by a certain configuration with the Starliner spacecraft, but they're looking into it. Right now there's no hum, so they'll confirm that. In the meantime, you can see some of the bags that were referenced on the outside of the pressurized mating adapter contains some safety goggles. Now, being that this is a brand new spacecraft, the safety goggles are a protective measure, including masks. You can see they're about to don the masks right now. As they open up the hatch, this protects the astronauts against any what's called FOD, foreign object debris. Now, because the Starliner spacecraft is not inhabited and there's no one on the other side of that spacecraft, this is more so a safety measure, just as the astronauts open up the hatches to a brand new spacecraft with limited insight as to what's inside. These are standard safety measures that are exercised for any visiting vehicle that's approaching the International Space Station. You would see this as a common practice for any of the uncrewed cargo vehicles that regularly fly to the International Space Station.
Station on 2 from node 2 for the A-pass hatch.
With you on 2, Joe.
Okay, we have used the tool to open the hatch. Valve is still open. A little bit of difficulty opening it, so I think the hatch seals have not fully relaxed. We're going to wait additional 5 minutes, if that sounds good to you.
Shall we like that plan? We're good with 5 more minutes.
Okay, copy.
So you heard that report from Kjell Lindgren aboard the International Space Station. Again, if you're following our coverage, he's the one that's currently upside down in this view in the far end. Near the hatch is NASA astronaut Bob Hines. The two of them are working together on getting the first of 2 hatches opened to eventually go inside the Starliner spacecraft. This one's called the APAS hatch. It's on the International Space Station side, and there's another hatch, of course, the hatch to the Boeing Starliner itself. As part of the procedures to open up both of the hatches, there's that area in between called the vestibule that needs to be fully pressurized, and through that there needs to be some period of time for settling that pressure. The seals themselves, you can hear, need to be relaxed a little bit more, so they're just going to wait 5 more minutes to open up the hatch. Now, Rebecca, this is something that we'll see, of course, very soon for when we have crew inside Starliner. For this particular flight test, we don't have any crew, though we do see Rosie inside, and so we'll understand very soon what it will be like when Starliner has crew inside and they're talking to each other on the loops as they're opening up the hatches and going through these procedures.
Yeah, everything that we are doing today is definitely setting us up for crew. In fact, the whole flight test has been about what will it be like when we have astronauts on board the next time we dock to the International Space Station. And you mentioned, kind of what comes next after they get through this vestibule, and that's where we will get to see the Starliner hatch. It's known as the IVA hatch, the Intravehicular Activity Hatch, and we'll get some views of them being able to open it, probably from the other side of the Mustang system. It's the video system that we have on board the Starliner, and so we might be able to see Kjell or Bob's faces through the hatch there, through that camera. And so what you'll see as they're opening that hatch is they are going to basically grab onto a latch and pull it lefty-loosey, about 1 1/4 of a turn, and that'll be the way that they open up the hatch. And so hopefully we'll get to see that from the other side, from within Starliner.
Very good. And we are getting views inside the Starliner spacecraft now. You mentioned cameras. They're being routed through the umbilical connection that connects the Starliner spacecraft itself to the International Space Station. And we are seeing Rosie on the inside. She, of course, patiently waiting. You mentioned patient being one of the key words here for this mission. She patiently waiting for Bob Hines and Kjell Lindgren to go ahead and open up the hatch.
Yeah, Rosie is patient, and so is Sunny Williams. We're in the ISS flight control room today, and we heard her remark, hey, move out of the way. So I think Sunny and the rest of the crew that's been training with us is really excited to get into Starliner and fly it next.
NASA astronaut Sunita Williams, she's here right now as the Starliner expert next to International Space Station Capcom Rob Hayhurst, who you see in the corner of the frame there. She, of course, has been training for years on the Starliner spacecraft, working very closely with NASA and Boeing teams on the Starliner systems. Of course, the hatch and hatch opening procedures she very intimately familiar with, as she will one day be on the other side of that hatch, where in the same seats where Rosie is, and she'll be patiently waiting for the International Space Station astronauts to be going through these procedures, hopefully, not pushing Rosie out of the way.
You talk about training, and I know that the crew aboard the ISS has been able to train on these hatch open procedures with the Boeing mock-up trainer that's here at Johnson Space Center, and they also have an opportunity to train on just a hatch. So we have a hatch within the simulator or the trainer, and then they also have a standalone hatch that they've been able to go through these procedures with.
Fantastic. And as we're seeing live views from the International Space Station, NASA astronaut Bob Hines has successfully opened up the APAS hatch. Again, this is the hatch on the International Space Station side. There is the hatch on the other side, which of course we've been discussing is the Starliner hatch. You can see they're taking some photographs just to document the condition of the APAS hatch. You see Bob Hines with a flashlight on the other side, inspecting the area in between the two hatches called the vestibule. They'll go through these procedures and document the conditions before getting that go.
NCC CST station APAS hatch is open and no condensation is seen.
Houston copies, no condensation.
And that's a good report from NASA astronaut Kjell Lindgren, again documenting the conditions of the APAS hatch and the vestibule in between the two hatches. They'll continue to do so. They'll continue to inspect and document the conditions before they get a series of next steps to go ahead and open up, of course, the Starliner hatch, which we, of course, are very patiently waiting for.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we have to patiently wait a little longer. The crew will actually check the pressure of the Starliner capsule. They want to make sure that it's at 0 pressure. It's really important. So they'll be turning some knobs. They can manually change the pressure of the spacecraft and get it to the right pressure before opening. And they'll be able to watch that through a gauge that's on the IVA hatch on the space station side.
You can see astronauts Kjell Lindgren and Bob Hines working together to outfit the APAS hatch. He now has a protective cover that he's going to use. You can see this is the side of the hatch that the astronauts themselves will, whenever they pass through the hatch, that protects the astronauts themselves from any nicks or bumps. Really a protective safety measure as they navigate between the Starliner itself and the International Space Station.
Good, Sam.
For STAFA 5.7.2, I need to remove that wastewater QD on the UIP. There is a note there that's confusing me a little bit. It tells me, or reminds me to remove it from the REC interface panel, not the station side UIP. Only access to one QD. The other side of that hose disappears behind like a Velcro caption tape area, and it's basically the QD that is right next to the N2 QD that I disconnected at the very beginning of this activity this morning. Just looking for confirmation that I'm looking at the right thing.
Checking.
The International Space Station, of course, a busy place. You see astronauts Kjell Lindgren and Bob Hines here. Their duties for today on this Saturday is opening up the hatch between the Starliner spacecraft and the International Space Station. You see coming into frame and sort of passing through is NASA astronaut Jessica Watkins. She'll be aiding with some of the setup procedures for setting up the cameras and getting ready for a formal welcome ceremony that we'll perform with all Expedition 67 crew members here very shortly. The communications you heard on the Space to Ground was Samantha Cristoforetti. Of course, the space station is a very busy place, and even on a Saturday, she's got some work to do. She's working on some maintenance of the oxygen generation system, swapping out some hoses.
We think you are looking at the right panel.
Gary, I think we'll see specifically for Starliner some setup for a duct system that'll push through air-conditioned air into the spacecraft so that when the astronauts enter, there's nice clean air in there.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, that's the right one. Thank you.
Houston and MCC CST on 2. We are in step 6.2, waiting for a go.
And we have a normal handover of the video link from the International Space Station. You see this is the live view of the International Space Station flight control teams. They're helping Lindgren and Hines through the hatch opening procedures, and of course all of the crew members aboard the International Space Station. We'll be regaining that video shortly.
Yeah, Kjell, Houston, CST down here. We are go for you to pick up in step 6.2. And we're going to have some deltas for you in this procedure, so once you get complete with step 6, call us back. We're going to do some audio panel reconfig before step 7.
Okay, station copies. We're going for 6.2, and we'll call you back when we're complete with step 6.
Good readback, thanks.
Station Houston Space Ground 2 for Jessica and AQM help.
Go ahead on 2.
Hey, Jessica, we need your help to recover the lab AQM. We see it has gone offline. We just need a repower from you. You can reference procedure 2.5.071. And this is to recycle power on the lab AQM1, which is in lab deck 2, serial number 1007.
Okay, I copy all. Repowering the lab AQM1 in the deck 2 location serial number 1007 and referencing procedure 2.5.071. That's in work.
Good read.
And Houston 2 for the OGA activity.
Go ahead, Sam.
I disconnected that QD at the wastewater line. However, I had to reconnect it. It's leaking quite significantly.
Okay, copy. Significant leak, and you reconnected it.
So you hear Samantha Cristoforetti on board the International Space Station working through some of the maintenance steps and troubleshooting the oxygen generation system. Everything looking good on that end, though. She'll continue to work through her steps. In the meantime, we'll focus on Kjell Lindgren and Bob Hines. You see them at the forward end of the International Space Station.
Station Houston 2 for Sam. I'm sure you're already doing this. You go ahead and clean up the water. We estimated it was 280 milliliters that leaked, and this was potable water, so no concern with the type of water it is.
Okay, understood. Yes, I clean up.
And we're working on
instructions.
Yep, we're working on an additional follow-up on how to mitigate this leak.
Okay, thank you.
And NCCCST for step 6.2.
Go ahead.
All right, we opened IVA hatch equalization valve number 1. With very minimal airflow, we read the hatch pressure gauge at 0.8 at this time.
Okay, copy that.
And to be clear, we opened the equalization valve that is across or opposite the handle, the hatch handle. The latch unlatch handle, and so understand that we need less than 0.5. Do you want us to wait or continue?
Yeah, we're talking about it 10 by 1.
Yeah, copy.
So you just heard that the crew is continuing to monitor the pressure of the Starliner spacecraft. They have turned those dials and are watching the pressure gauge, and then hearing from flight control teams that they need to wait a little bit longer before they can go inside the Starliner.
Just a quick clarification for the ISO valve that you guys operated. It was the one at the like ISS deck on the opposite side of the latch handle. So it'd be at about the 6 o'clock if you're looking at the hatch. Yeah, that way, towards the deck. It's on the flat side of the hatch. That's the one we intend to open.
One on the deck is the towards the deck is the one that we actuated, and we were unable to find numbering for IMV 1 and 2, so we just used the video to identify which one was IMV 1.
Okay, copy the report. Stand by.
Once we get to the right pressure on the Starliner spacecraft, the next step
And Chell Houston, for the hatch differential pressure gauge, can you give us another reading?
Houston for CST. The needle is on the edge of the green range, between the green range and the white range. So looking at the numbering, it looks like it's 0.7 or 0.8.
All right, copy that. Thanks for the report. And Station Houston for Starliner hatch, we're happy with that reading based on the other telemetry we have here about the pressure equalization. So you're go to pick up with the CST hatch opening.
Okay, copy, go to open the CST hatch.
All right, looks like they have a good pressure reading on the Starliner spacecraft, and the crew is go to open the hatch. As I mentioned, they will grab that latch bar. They'll turn it 1 1/4 of a turn to the left. You know, the vehicle is in space, so there could be this phenomenon known as suction cup effect, and so they might have to, you know, turn that latch just another 1/4 of a turn to give it some more force. And then the hatch itself also has 2 sort of kicker plates, and you could sort of think about that as like built-in butter knives on a pickle jar. They also have the opportunity to use a tool, kind of a standalone butter knife type tool, if they need to just release that pressure just a little bit to
All right. And it looks like the hatch is open to the Starliner. We're getting Bob Hines is the first astronaut to enter Starliner in orbit, successfully opening up the hatch. This view coming from the Starliner itself. C1103. That hatch opening time was 11:04 a.m. Central Time.
Hey, Chell, Farmer, Houston, if you can, just a reminder for the PPE for ingress.
very cool to see from inside the Starliner as that hatch opened.
Yeah, sorry, can you repeat last?
Yeah, for Farmer, can we just get them reminded that we need PPE on? Just get the goggles down.
Thank you.
So as the hatch was opened, you may have noticed that there's actually no hinges on the IVA hatch. So the crew basically can grab onto 2 handles and sort of push it into place inside the Starliner spacecraft. From there, they're going to position it into a location for storing, strap it into place. And one of the next procedures that they've got is they're actually going to latch the other hatch, the hatch that the crew would enter if they were going to be launching on the Starliner, just for precautionary purposes. That would be done, obviously, if there were a crew riding up on Starliner, but this time around, the International Space Station astronauts will be doing that.
We did see that side hatch open when we saw some of the video of some of the teams out at the launch pad prepping the Starliner, and that's the hatch that's being referenced, that hatch on the side. This, of course, being the forward hatch, now open, 11:04 a.m. Central Time. You can see Kjell Lindgren peeking through. Of course, Bob Hines was the first astronaut to enter the Starliner in orbit. They're wearing their personal protective gear as part of a standard safety measure as they enter uncrewed spacecraft. They'll be being the first humans to enter. Just make sure there's no FOD or foreign object debris surrounding. Getting crystal clear, high-definition views from the cameras inside Starliner. They have cameras in hand to document the condition of Starliner. Those images will be sent down to teams here on the ground to analyze, to see the condition of the Starliner, as these humans are the first to see it from the inside in orbit.
Starliner is equipped with 4 cameras inside the cabin, so we're seeing the IVA hatch camera. We saw the Rosie views, and that is basically looking at the commander seat. There's also one that shows a view of the whole cabin, and so you might be able to see the gravity indicator a little bit better in that view, and that is Jebediah Kerman from the Kerbal Space Program. And then we also have an out the window view, which is really cool to see, and we've captured a lot of that on the ride up and through this operation, and we will capture more on the return to Earth and hopefully be able to share that with the public.
And we're getting a new view now. As you mentioned, Rebecca, 4 cameras inside the Starliner spacecraft. We're now getting a view of Kjell Lindgren, Bob Hines, and Rosie the Rocketeer, all in the same shot. You can even see the zero-G indicator there in the back.
Rosie is definitely representative of the entire team that's been working toward this moment. You know, Rosie's motto is "We can do it," and she definitely did it, and so did the Starliner. This view of Rosie, you can see she's wearing a polka-dotted mask and bandana, and that was actually sewn by May Cryer. She was an original Rosie the Riveter for Boeing during World War II. So it's nice to see the fruits of her labor be able to go up to space too. You know, I mentioned May Cryer having sewn together this bandana and mask, and you can see here she actually signed it and left a little note for the Starliner team, and we'll be looking forward to getting this back to her or any organization that she chooses to send it to when it returns to Earth and to the moon and to the stars, is what May Cryer said.
Fantastic. And of course, Rosie the Rocketeer now in orbit with the Expedition 767 crew. Of course, the hatch is open. 11:04 a.m. Central Time was that open time. We'll have a formal welcome ceremony here in about 50 minutes. So we're targeting noon Central Time to start that. But
on 2 from PMA 2.
Good, Joe.
We're looking for the side hatch handle retention strap, and farmer's gone from one end of the hose insertion bag to the other, and we have an HLA restraint and an IVA hatch restraint. Are either of these the restraint we're looking for?
Yeah, Joe, it's the HLA restraint is the one y'all are looking for.
Okay, copy. HLA restraint. Thank you.
And Joe, the other restraint that you called out, you're going to need that a little later in the procedure.
The HLA restraint that they're talking about with the crew is actually, what's going to be put over that side hatch that we mentioned earlier. Just a precautionary measure because there's no crew on board to have latched that into place before launch. They're going to go ahead and take care of that here, and that'll just keep them safe. As they're moving about the cabin, they're going to have a number of things that they'll be doing aboard the space station, charging tablets, removing cargo. So just a precautionary measure that they're going to go ahead and put that restraint on. We are getting a really great view of Rosie's co-pilot, Jebediah Kerman, and the background there is, the program has been through, a journey to get here, and some of our engineers actually learned orbital mechanics on the Kerbal Space Program, and so they asked if we could go ahead and fly up Jebediah on this flight. The other thing that we're seeing in view here is some patches on Rosie, and so the one on the left is the Orbital Flight Test 2 patch. That is a patch that was designed with our teammates in mind, and on it is a thumbprint. And the whole purpose behind that, or the symbol behind that, is that everyone has had, a hand in creating this vehicle and getting it to where it is today. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see Chell working with the IVA hatch that was moved out of the way to get into the Starliner spacecraft. And so in a couple minutes, they'll be going ahead and stowing that in its proper location and restraining it inside the Starliner.
Now, inside the Starliner is NASA astronauts Bob Hines and Kjell Lindgren. You can see at the end of the Node 2 forward hatch. So this is there's 3 hatches that you have to pass through from inside Starliner to get into the International Space Station. You got the IVA hatch, which is the Starliner hatch, the A-Pass hatch, and then the Node 2 forward hatch. At the end of Node 2 is cosmonaut Denis Matveyev. He will be joining the other cosmonauts and the rest of the Expedition 67 crew later. We're looking at the top of the hour, noon Central Time, to formally welcome Starliner to the International Space Station. In the meantime, the crew, of course, are focusing on the procedures to get the hatch secured and some closeout procedures inside Starliner. They'll revisit more procedures later, performing some tests with the communications, C2V2, common communications for visiting vehicle systems on both sides, but we will have some time to formally welcome the Starliner's arrival and the hatch opened now that astronauts are inside the crew spacecraft.
Station for CST.
Go ahead.
Side hatch handle retention strap has been has secured the hatch handle. We've taken photos. We see no particulates. We're doffing PPE, and the IVA hatch seals all look great, and we're ready to proceed into step 7.
Okay, Kjell, yeah, I think so the next operation on your timeline takes you to part 4, which has got a few more step 6 steps in it. So you can complete those and give us a call back when you're done.
Yep, and I see that now. So we are stepping into 6.3.
Roger.
So you heard that excellent report from the crew. As part of their procedures to open up the hatch, it's not just opening up and getting inside, right? They had to wear that protective gear just to protect for any particulates or foreign object debris that was inside. And they did an inspection of the hatch, and they were, of course, looking for the straps to seal some of the hatches. Good reports all around. The hatch looks good, no particulates. So you see they doffed or removed the protective gear, including masks and goggles that they were wearing. They're continuing with some of those closeout procedures, including photography, and in fact maybe a little bit more fun on the fun side as well. They were taking photos of the zero-G indicator and Rosie, but they'll work through these procedures for some time. That's most of their timeline today to work on the Starliner spacecraft.
Gary, you mentioned the crew having a little fun taking pictures of the zero-G indicator. So again, that is Jebediah Kerman from the Kerbal Space Program, and part of that game is learning through some failures or learning through some challenges. And I do think that sums up what we've been able to do with the Starliner. We have learned through some challenges and gotten to the space station. It did take some time, and the Starliner spacecraft had to wait patiently.
Looks like Chell wants to take center stage on this, but of course that takes the priority. They're doing a full inspection. You can see him looking at some of the display and control panels. You can see Denis Matveyev, one of the cosmonauts, helping out. So it's taking a full crew complement. They're working through to make sure the Starliner's in tip-top shape. Of course, we'll formally welcome them later, but it is good to see not only the international crew of Expedition 67, but of course Rosie the Rocketeer and Jebediah, a full crew complement to see this image here as we have the Starliner on orbit and on the International Space Station.
Really nice to see that many crew members inside the Starliner the next time the Starliner flies. That's likely what we'll be seeing.
So, of course, the crew working through their procedures to get Starliner ready. They're checking out some of the various systems. You saw they were getting some straps. As we get these fantastic views from inside the Starliner spacecraft, you're seeing sort of the lighting conditions change on the inside. There are multiple windows inside the Starliner spacecraft. There is one right above the head of Rosie the Rocketeer. Now, the International Space Station right now is 261 statute miles over Western Africa in an orbital daytime. So what you're seeing in that change of scenery is the sun as we are in an orbital daytime. We will enter into more of an orbital darkness and get into an eclipsed phase where the sun is blocked by the Earth itself as the station orbits, and you'll see those lighting conditions change even more.
Yeah, great view out the window for the commander.
So you probably want the commander seat if you're going to be riding the Boeing Starliner.
Looks like they might be checking out the console of the Starliner spacecraft. Certainly different than the Space Shuttle era spacecraft. Compared to thousands of switches and dials, you've got about a dozen, and then you've got electronic displays that show you what the Starliner's up to. I'm sure it's, really incredible for some of the teammates on our crew and cargo accommodations team to be able to see these astronauts maneuvering about the cabin. You can only do so much when they're on the ground. And so being able to see them use the handlebars and maneuver around that spacecraft, and the cargo still in the place that it was packed in, I think is probably going to make them very happy.
So you see the crew now. This is the IVA, the intervehicular hatch. This is the Starliner hatch. It is a free-floating hatch, not on a hinge or anything. But they did find the hatch cover. You can see they're covering it now.
And that hatch weighs about 100 pounds, but in zero-G, that doesn't really matter. It's just a little bulky to move around, but not heavy in any way.
We're also getting a good view from this camera angle. Again, there are 4 cameras on the inside of Starliner. We've seen now 3 of them. Very lucky to be seeing this as they work through their procedures to cover that free-floating hatch. But we're also getting a good view of the 800 pounds of cargo that Starliner brought up with it. There's 500 pounds of NASA cargo and supplies, and the part of the procedures that the crew will work through over these coming days. Of course, this is a flight test, and they have a lot of test objectives to get through, but there will be some time spent on cargo transfer, getting some of that cargo on board the International Space Station, and then bringing cargo into Starliner to return some things home, including some nitrogen-oxygen recharge system tanks that provide breathable air to the environment of the International Space Station. Starliner will be bringing home 3 of those.
The other thing that they're going to be looking to recharge aboard the Starliner is the Starliner's batteries. A couple other things that they will be doing is conducting audio checkouts between the Starliner and the ISS, the Starliner and Mission Control here in Houston, and they're also going to begin planning for a daylight landing. That's something we really want to do when we return to Earth, is land in the daylight. You see floating in view here the cover of the IVA hatch, and the material is actually known as Nomex. It's the same material that they actually make spacesuits out of. It's really important that any material that goes in the Starliner is space rated, doesn't off-gas, can't catch fire, things like that. So you can also see the cargo bags there. Those are also made of Nomex material. And inside that those cargo bags is about 500 pounds for NASA, crew supplies, food, and such. And then we've got some good surprises for our Starliner teammates when they return. Also 14 flags and pennants from historically black colleges and universities throughout the United States that Boeing has partnerships with.
Copy, no action for the caution.
As this IVA hatch is moving about the cabin here, you can see some of those items that I was talking about that we couldn't really see in view as they were doing their operations to open the hatch. But there are those valves to, move the pressure in the Starliner spacecraft, and then the gauge, and then also the latch opener itself. Right now, you're also seeing 2 seats inside the Starliner spacecraft. Starliner was actually designed to be able to carry a mix of crew and cargo, up to 7 passengers to any destination in low Earth orbit. For NASA missions to and from the International Space Station, though, we can configure it with 5 seats and cargo to make up those other 2 slots. And so for post-certification missions, we would be carrying 4 NASA astronauts, and we've got that 5th seat as place for additional cargo, or maybe another passenger that's outside of NASA's international partnership.
We're in a short handover now, so you're seeing a live view of the International Space Station Flight Control Room. These handovers are expected to be short during these cargo operations and closeout operations, the hatch cover operations. So we'll be regaining those views shortly, but in the meantime, you're getting a look at the International Space Station flight control teams. They're walking the space station crew themselves through the procedures that they're undergoing now with the photography and getting Starliner ready. We are tracking to start that welcome ceremony with all 7's Expedition 67 crew members here at the top of the hour, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, we'll continue to provide live views of some of their procedures as we get ready for that formal welcome.
And this is the International Space Station control room. Nearby is the Starliner flight control room, and that was obviously buzzing yesterday as they were working through docking procedures. But overnight, it was pretty quiet. They weren't working any issues with the Starliner. The Starliner itself was quiet, and so that enabled us to move forward with hatch open today. So you can see behind the crew working there, we mentioned the Starliner seats, and those tan parts of the Starliner seats are actually 3D printed inserts, and every Starliner astronaut who flies will actually get their own 3D printed insert so that it is like perfectly, fit for their body, providing them a really comfortable ride to space. Those cargo bags that you're seeing are actually known as CTBs, cargo transfer bags. The blue ones are actually those mementos that I mentioned. Those are Boeing bags. And then the white ones are the NASA transfer bags. And so those will be the ones that are coming off of the Starliner and going into the International Space Station.
Station Houston, Spacecraft 3 for Jessica and PAO event.
Head on 3.
Hey, Jessica, we did not put a scene and voice check on the timeline today, but when you are ready with all your configs, we would like to do a quick one.
Hey, Farmer Houston on the big loop. If you can hear me in the Starliner, give us a wave.
Thanks.
Starliner Houston, Space to Ground 2 for the hatch. We see it moving around quite a bit. We'd like to get that secured so it's not being it's not as free floating there. So suggestions are either tighten the straps or find a different cargo puck to change the angle so it's easier for the hatch to be retained there against the wall.
We mentioned cargo that was flying up in those Boeing blue bags, and so you can see here those flags and pennants from 14 black, historically black colleges and universities from the United States. Also going up are Rosie the Riveter coins. You can see there, we can do it. And that really is about our commitment to equity and inclusion at Boeing. You also saw some tree seeds. Kind of interesting fun fact there. In 1971, astronauts to Rusa took about 500 seeds from 5 different species of trees around the moon with him on Apollo 14.
50-foot cable.
And that is loblolly pine, sycamore, sweet gum, redwood, and Douglas fir. And there's our crew and cargo accommodations team, packed with love for sure.
Jessica, yes, the floater camera is the one we want the scene and voice check on.
And look. And Houston on 3, sorry for another camera question, but looks like we've got the Node 2 number 1 and 2 set up in Node 2. So you'd like us to take one of those down and replace it with the floater cam?
Checking. And thanks for keeping us honest, Jessica. Yes, you can take either one of those cameras in Node 2 to replace it with the floater cam.
Yeah, I'm just on to for this PAO setup. I'm just trying to understand whether we they're on the same page with the big. So I see Node 2 camera 1 set up on a bracket, and my understanding is that is going to be the one for our group PAO at the beginning. And then Wadi also set up a floater that is connected to the long cable, which is the one that I assume is going to go into Starliner. And we are ready to give you a scene check on Node 2 number 1 and voice. And then I'm assuming just a voice check on the floater, since that is going to float into Starliner, or do you want the floater also to be set up in a particular position before we take it into Starliner?
Checking. Station Houston on 3 for Sam. So the answer to that is the intention is for the entire event, what's going to happen in Node 2 and when we float into Starliner. It is all on a single camera on the floater cam.
Okay, understood. Then we are going to go ahead now and set up the camera that is labeled floater that is connected to the long cable on a bracket, and we'll give you a scene check and voice check on that one. The scene check being for the initial group PAO before the tour in Starliner, and then that same camera is going to be taken into Starliner.
That is a good understanding.
And Starliner, Houston, on the big loop there. As far as the hatch goes, we wanted to offer up the use of some adjustable. All right, Starliner Houston, I'm back with you after that little handover there. On 2, we see that the hatch is still sort of free floating. We need to break over to the PAO event, which starts in about 4 minutes, and then after which we'll address better securing it. We just wanted to remind you to be mindful of that.
And station copies. I've tried both the cargo pucks locations. Cinching down the straps, I think we're just limited to Velcro, so if not, I need some instruction on how to do that. But something to be aware of when we've taken photos is that the bumper that's on the front side of the hatch the hatch doesn't actually contact it at all. The hatch handle on the outside of the hatch actually hits the bulkhead, and the hatch never makes contact with that bumper.
Okay, copy that. We're going to talk about it.
We're working on that some more, and then also for 7.7, the IMV duct install is complete.
Roger, thanks, Joe.
You just heard a conversation between Capcom and the International Space Station crew members about that IVA hatch, and just another opportunity for us to learn about how the vehicle and its hardware is operating in space and being able to incorporate those lessons learned before the crewed flight test.
Houston on 2, we are ready for a scene and voice check.
Houston's ready as well. Station Houston on Space Ground 2. Audio is good. The scene framing looks fine, but we see some icons on the display. If you could toggle those off, it would be a better frame. And Station Houston on 2 for the floater camera, we're still seeing all the display items on the frame, and it's actually framing each person's face with a box. That's what we're looking to get off there.
And Houston, to us the display looks like it always looks, so if you have any steps for us to try and change that setting, we'll have to do it.
Copy, we're trying to get the right words to you. Stand by. And for the camera, on the back side of the camera, there is a display button. If you could push that, we think that will get us what we need.
Done.
And that was successful. Thank you.
Wonderful.
We're still looking at views inside the Starliner spacecraft as the International Space Station astronauts are now inside the space station getting ready for some welcoming remarks for the Starliner spacecraft. First time in orbit and first time to dock to the International Space Station. While Starliner is docked to the space station, we mentioned that there will be a number of checkouts. They're also going to be transferring data from the Vesta system, and that was that system that helped Starliner autonomously dock to the space station. They'll go ahead and initialize Starliner's GPS from the International Space Station state. And they will also do a service module battery checkout. Definitely something important to do because the service module will not be coming back to Earth like the crew module will. So want to get as much data from that vehicle or that part of the vehicle as they can. They're also, as part of a flight test objective, they're going to go ahead and test out the audio. So space to ground loops inside the Starliner spacecraft. And so we'll be looking for that. Might happen while we're on the air today, could happen a little bit later in the flight.
Expedition 67, we are ready to begin the welcome ceremony when you are.
Boeing Starliner, welcome on board space station. I have a lot of friends who work in Boeing. I know how hard and strong and but very interesting to make a new ship. We congratulations Boeing team and ground control team with this victory, but maybe a small victory, no, but very important victory. We wish Mike Fink or Sanita Williams with crew will arrive according on board space station on the plan. Hand over.
Спасибо. Well, we had the privilege and the honor of watching Starliner arrive yesterday. We were able to acquire the vehicle 12 to 15 kilometers out or so, and we got to watch it all the way through, and it was really spectacular to see this beautiful vehicle arrive here yesterday. So that was really special for us. Parked out on the doorstep for a little while, resolving some minor issues, but those are the kinds of things we expect in flight test, and that is why we do tests. If we didn't find something like that, we're probably doing something wrong. So it was highly successful mission yesterday. It was great to have Starliner on board, and we have the opportunity to open the hatch and just enjoy it and see the new vehicle that is coming to station and bringing a new capability. Back in 2014, NASA awarded the commercial crew contracts, and this is the day that they envisioned, where we have 3 human-rated vehicles docked to the space station right now. So we have the Soyuz docked on the MLM, and then we have a Dragon right above us, and the Starliner right behind us. So this is a momentous day in NASA's history, and just paving the way for the future as we start enabling commercial flights here in low Earth orbit, while NASA pivots to the moon and eventually on to Mars. So it's just it's been a great day, but enough of us talking. We would like to take this chance to bring all of you along with us and let you see what Starliner looks like up here on orbit, docked to the very front of space station. So come along with us. Okay, you're traveling down PMA 2, which is where the docking adapters are on the very front of space station, and now you're entering into Starliner. So welcome to Starliner for the very first time ever in space. Here you can see Starliner, and Rosie the Rocketeer is sitting over in the commander's seat, along with her zero-G indicator, Jebediah Kerbal. She's got a great view out her window over there, and then on the crewed vehicles we'll actually have two other seats in here, and then lots of room for cargo as well. So we hope you enjoyed touring Starliner with us today, and with that we'd like to hand it back to Houston. Thanks a lot for being here.
And Station Starliner Capcom, thanks for the great look inside this new spacecraft. Starliner team is glad to have come on board. The journey has been hard, but the reward is what we see today as our teams work together to meet the promise of advancement offered in low Earth orbit. This connection is the first of many that will continue for years to come. No one goes to space alone, and we can all benefit from the efforts involved.
Station, this is Houston ACR. Thank you. That concludes our event.
Thank you to the Expedition 67 crew, Starliner Capcom, for your remarks on this historic day in human spaceflight. The docking of Starliner to ISS represents the hard work and dedication of the NASA and Boeing teams. On behalf of those who built and operate Starliner and those who built, operate, and help support Station, welcome aboard. It's great to see these families together today, and we can't wait to get them together again soon to greet a Starliner crew. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
All right, wonderful words from the crew. We got to follow a lot of the action today with the NASA astronauts Kjell Lindgren and Bob Hines enter into the Starliner. It was Hines who got to be the first human inside Starliner while it was in orbit. They worked through a lot of their procedures to get the hatch covered, and we saw them remove some cargo and get it configured. We saw the ducts go in so they can mix some of the air from the International Space Station itself. A lot has happened, and then, of course, we saw them formally welcome Starliner to the International Space Station. Great words from Bob Hines, who gave us those peeks with Kjell Lindgren. They floated that camera in. Spectacular views on the inside. We've been seeing really a lot of that throughout most of the day. And, of course, words from the Starliner Capcom and from the International Space Station Capcom. So a lot has happened, Rebecca, to get us to this point. Truly a moment to celebrate.
Yeah, beautiful words from the International Space Station crew members, and we got to look at Sunny and Mike Fink, who are training to fly Starliner, and you could see them getting a little emotional about it, and so it was really nice to see that because they may be going up in it soon, and that was really what it's all about, is learning to fly so that we can fly crew.
That's right. That's what we're leading to next. Now, of course, there's a lot of objectives that the teams are going to be working on to get through some of the testing that's needed during the docked phase. And then, of course, we're looking forward to Starliner returning with about 600 pounds of cargo to Earth. Make sure you go to nasa.gov and check out the latest on our coverage for some of those activities. We'll be sending out more updates throughout all of next week as we continue to monitor the conditions for landing and the times. So stay tuned with us there. In the meantime, that'll do it for us here in Mission Control Houston. Thanks for tuning in.